Hi, Sarah. Thank you for meeting me over the
No
phone.
problem.
I appreciate this. So, Sarah, this is actually from our professor. We'll see this. Sarah is the kids pastor at Allison Park Church, and she's awesome. I've gotten to intern under her, so I'm excited to ask her questions. Sarah, thank you again.
Not a problem.
So,
Happy.
let's start out. Can you tell me how you first got into leadership? Like, what was that like? Like your first leadership position, or when you first felt like you were a leader?
Yeah, I think my very first actual leadership role within ministry was actually as a small group leader for middle school.
Oh, nice.
So that was the first thing, and that was something that I specifically asked to get involved with. So it was something similar to what I had done in my home church before I moved to Pittsburgh.
Wow.
But that was my first role, which ended up not being anything like where I am now. But I didn't know that at the time. I was just like hungry to do something to impact younger kids.
Wow.
And that's what I knew.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So it started as a just small group leader, and then from there you're like, you saw like kind of like the gift that God has given you as a leader, and that ability, and like where did that take you?
Well, I don't think I did see any gift in myself.
Okay.
I think, honestly, I can remember, to be perfectly honest, when I first started with middle school, the first few weeks I was petrified. I was like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. Like, but I just kept showing up and growing and getting to know the kids. But then over time, I think it wasn't so much what I saw, it was other people seeing it in me. So
Gotcha.
the other pastors on staff, like Pastor Greg, who was the youth pastor, saw things in me and gave me more to do. And then, yeah, I guess fast forward a couple of years. So like, I don't know how much you want me to say here, but like,
Yeah,
I
no, as much as you want.
this talk. So I went, did that for about a year. And then I actually went overseas and was working as a missionary in Africa.
Wow.
With kids there, and was in a leadership role, but didn't even necessarily know that I was going to do that before I went over. But it was a need. So it was kind of like,
Wow.
I saw this need and I wanted to create something for the kids. So I learned a lot there in working cross-culturally with people and having to figure things out. But I still was limited as a leader because I was only doing what I could do. I wasn't
Wow.
necessarily equipping a whole lot of people. There was one person working with me.
Wow.
Who was African. And then I came back to Pittsburgh, and that is when the famous Joe Schaefer, that at least I know Sean knows, recruited me to start serving in kids ministry as a small group leader. And at that
Wow.
point, I really didn't know what I wanted to even do, but I just kind of jumped in, and over time was given like a coordinator role over a service. And I think it was just honestly for me, because again, I wasn't seeing what I was capable of doing, but I was trying to my best to just be faithful with what I had, investing in the kids and open to what my leaders were seeing and hearing their feedback and taking those challenges as they came. So I never would have imagined myself calling myself a leader or being in leadership. I think I ran from it for a long time, but
Wow.
yeah.
That's cool. That's such a unique like perspective and experience of like you were involved so much, when you were overseas and you come back. It's a pretty similar thing. So you were pastoring the kids, ministering to the kids overseas, and you come back and now you're doing it to, American kids.
Yeah.
Could you real quick speak on like kind of like the differences, maybe the different challenges just of that, like being a leader in those contexts?
Yeah. So I think, so in Africa, one of the biggest barriers was the language barrier. So figuring out, and culture. So figuring out how do I not just present Jesus, but build genuine relationship with not only the kids, but people that are going to be there when I leave. So that was definitely one of the biggest things, because the one girl that worked with me who was from Ethiopia, she, there was a point where I started kind of training her to do more and me stepping back, which in a missionary context is a big deal because we're not going to be as effective as someone who speaks the local language. And so that was huge. And I think just trying things and them failing and like different pressures that you face in a third world country, that we don't have here. Like, we take so many things for granted, obviously, that we have access to. And kids there, the environment is so different because kids are just open and they want anything you can give them. Where here in America, I have to like almost prove to them sometimes that this is awesome. Like, kids have everything in America, so it's a different bend. And so I almost had to relearn cultural ministry when I came back to the States, because I had to learn how to use resources that kids want in America, like technology and media and cartoon clips and things that felt unnecessary in Africa were a huge part of being relevant and understanding the kids here, and then taking it up a notch and training other people to do that as well. So that's some of the things. Some of the things,
just
a lot of differences.
Yeah. So the baby shark strategy, almost, in America.
The baby shark. Oh my gosh. Yes.
That's awesome. So kind of going off that a little bit, those are like the cultural context challenges you faced. This question is probably more relates to when you came back to America. You started to really like have a team, and you were training others, and you said you started to see yourself as a leader and started to step into that. And in that journey, what would you say of your experience has been like the challenges of being a leader?
Yeah, I think some of the biggest challenges for me have been, number one, like constantly leading with vision. So staying ahead of my team, like knowing where we're going and constantly communicating that, and it's easy, I think, for me. I've gotten frustrated many times because they're like, why don't people get this? Why aren't they owning this small group role that they have, or whatever it is? They're not seeing the big picture. And that's my job. If they're not getting it, it's because I'm not communicating it well. So that's one thing, I think, was just leading with vision. And also for me, because I don't do this naturally, so I've had to learn how to have the hard conversations with other people. So if I see potential in someone else, I have to be willing to not only encourage them, but also say, hey man, like, you're not showing up on time for this. And this impacts our team when you're not there. So those kinds of things that help people grow, because I've grown from conversations like that. And then I think, and this is kind of a challenge I'm in now, which is fun, but it's also challenging, is learning how to reproduce what I know in other people. So I might know how to do certain things or lead or think a certain way, but I'm right now training a new director over our early childhood ministry, and she's really green. She doesn't know a lot about leadership, and I have to constantly have conversations with her and model things for her and follow up. And so it takes a lot of work. Like, that's, I think, a big challenge of leadership, especially with people. It's a lot of work, a lot of investment, and some days you feel like, am I even making progress? But when I look at my own journey of like, well, I'm only here because someone else pushed me and had hard conversations with me, and I see the growth in myself. So therefore, it is going to be worth it. It just might take longer than I think. And it's a shift for me of like, I'm not just going to do it, but now I'm going to try and equip someone else to do what I do and think like I think. Is wild, but
no, that's good. The reproducing leader. That's awesome. When you're talking about vision, how do you, and you were saying like you're communicating vision even with the small things. How do you communicate like the vision? There's a vision for the kids ministry, to reach the kids, whatever that may be. And then there's also the vision of the overall, the church you're a part of, the whole house. How do you kind of wrestle with the two? Is there a wrestle, or like, how do you get in line, with communicating vision to teenagers who are volunteers and adults who are volunteers, and then communicating vision to kids, but there's also that kind of umbrella vision of the house?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think, because this is like so where we are right now as a church, it's great. Because one thing as a church vision piece where we are at our church is we really want to grow. So we've always hit this barrier of X number of people, and we shrink back and we grow, but we keep hitting a ceiling. So I know, and this is something that I guess it is a bit of a tension, because I'm realizing like I know this because I'm hearing it from our staff meetings of where we're going and what we want to see happen, but then translating that ownership to my area. So I can only control the children's ministry and lead the children's ministry, but I need my team to know that big picture too.
Wow.
And especially when I have people in the nursery that are changing diapers and caring for kids, and does this really make a difference? Absolutely, because as we are equipping a key leader to lead the nursery room, for example, that is empowering other people to learn from that person, which then equips parents to go to church, which then equips us to have a safer environment for more families to even come to our church because we have more people on the team that know what they're doing. And then we're reaching more families because we build that trust. So it's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
And I think as far as learning, I mean, it's definitely like it's the Holy Spirit has to help you. Like how do you communicate it? Because it's depending on who you're talking to.
Okay.
If I'm talking to an adult who's a brand new leader, they are, usually really open because they've never heard this before and they want to be part of something. If I'm talking to a teenager who's been part of the church for a long time, that has a hard time showing up on time or just loves the kids but doesn't realize like they have their own insecurity, but like, hey, your investment in this kid is making a difference. And so I think it's knowing the big picture and when to communicate it, but then how am I going to say it? Like I would say something different to a teenager versus an adult. But I think I'm trying to constantly think now of, I feel like a broken record literally right now, but just like where we're going, this is where we're going, and this is why it's important, and this is going to mean we have to change and we have to think differently so we can reach more kids. And
so good.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And then looking back, there's the challenges of all those things. What's kind of like the reward? I guess another good word would be like, what's the fruit that you've seen from like being a leader? What's the value that you see in yourself or like seeing in others of leadership?
Yeah. I think there's probably a lot of things, but I'll try to like pinpoint. I think one of the big rewards that blows me away is when I see someone who started out on my team and was just a volunteer serving on occasion, and then they grow into a higher level of leadership, or they grow into a spot that's really their fit, and they love it and they own it and they come alive doing it. And for some people, that doesn't mean they are a director position. For some people, it might be a small group leader. But when I see those people throughout my team that I've recruited and I've seen them grow and seeing them really owning it, for me, that makes it really valuable, because then it starts to feel like a family, and it feels like when you see God using them and they're now seeing like, wow, I'm good at this, or wow, I'm part of what God is doing in our church. I think that's really the goal. It's not just that I have this great vision and we communicate it well, but other people are growing individually and understanding God has a plan for them and to use them. Because I never would have thought I could do anything like this. And so when I see other people having that same revelation, I think that's the biggest win for me of just, like that growth, which takes time, but it's worth it. Wow.
That's awesome. Thank you again for answering these questions, for being interviewed. I'm excited to see, what keeps happening at Kids Zone, Allison Park Church. So thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, no problem, John.
All right. Thanks. Bye.